Good morning. This is the first meeting of 2021 of the Pension Subcommittee. It's February 18th. My name is Senator Sarah Elfreth. I have the privilege of chairing this subcommittee. Today we are here to hear 4 bills. We are going to, I'll run through the bills quickly and we're going to go a little bit out of order. We have Senate Bill 606, Senate Bill 641, Senate Bill 642, and Senate Bill 680. We're going to go out of order. Senator Jennings is here to present Senate Bill 680, the Teachers Pension System Vested Allowance. I have Senator you as well as Ms. Gothrop are here to testify on Senate Bill 680. Senator Jennings.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, Senator Jennings for the record for Senate Bill 680. Just a quick description of the bill. It's a very narrowly defined piece of legislation that deals with the pension for retirees, and it's just a select few. What we find in state law is sometimes, there's just issues you need to correct, and this is really what it is. It's a correction bill where you have an employee who worked for the system, has retired, but decides to come back and work again, but they are not eligible for the pension system. Therefore, they're not investing into it and collecting at the same time. And unfortunately, for them to collect their pension right now, they would have to quit the system and go out. And, we're trying to keep talent there. And that's what this bill does. It's been narrowly focused, dealing with one situation, worked very closely with the administration and the department working on this, and has worked closely with my office. I believe that Senator Eckert has talked to me that she has a similar situation and may be offering an amendment for the piece of legislation. So with that, I can turn it over to Ann or take questions.
Do you have any questions for Senator Jennings? Seeing none. Ms. Gothrop from the State Retirement Agency. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee, and Gothrop for State Retirement. We are not taking any position on this bill, as I explained to the sponsor. However, as he pointed out, Senator Jennings pointed out, we have worked closely with his office on the drafting of it, and I'm happy to give you a little more detail on it. He explained it absolutely correctly. It is for one person. This individual has worked all over the state. He has a huge resume for teaching all over the state. He left in, I believe it was 2004 as a deferred vested, meaning he had accrued enough service so that when he reached normal retirement age, he would be able to begin accruing a benefit, receiving his benefit. So he's now at normal retirement age. But the problem is he's also employed at Harford County and Baltimore City, both of which are participating employers in the plan. Now, he is not back in the system at all because he's on contract with Harford County, and at Baltimore City, I believe he's in the employees retirement system for Baltimore City. So he's not even back in our plan for either of those positions. But the law says you cannot begin receiving a benefit if you are employed by a participating employer. It doesn't qualify if you're not in the plan, nothing like that. This bill corrects this. It allows him to begin receiving his pension from his previous service credit back in the early 2000s while continuing to work in these 2 positions that are not putting him in the plan at all. And in fact, had he begun receiving his pension and then gone to work for these 2 employers, he wouldn't even be subject to an earnings limit because they are not the same employer from which he retired. So it's just this nuance in the law that says you cannot return to work for a participating employer that is stopping him from being able to get this benefit.
Thank you, Ann. I see a question from Senator Griffith. Senator?
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you for this bill. Good morning, Ms. Gothrop. Always good to see you. Just a quick question. Do we have any sense of whether or not other employees might be in this position, or, are we drawing the bill so narrow that we'll have this bill again in another form next?
So you're breaking up a little, but I heard your question.
After that.
Okay. So we don't know. And I've actually talked to your committee staff about this. And I don't think we want to, at this point, have a sweeping policy because we don't know how many people are out there. We don't know if the fact pattern is going to be the same for every individual. We're worried that if we rush to do a sweeping policy right now for this case, we might have unintended consequences later on, where instead of seeing us come in with a bill for one person next year, you're going to see us come in and say, oh, we made a mistake, we rushed, we didn't think this through. And so at this point, there could be other people. You're absolutely right. This is not a unique situation. I think this is something that you might want to direct the joint committee to direct us to look at this policy and say, and work with DLS on this. Is there something we can do that's more sweeping to avoid you having to deal with these on a case-by-case basis? But at this point in time, I just think to do it broadly without looking at it more closely could create problems.
Thank you. That's a great answer. Thank you, Madam Chair. My Wi-Fi is unstable here, so it went in and out, so I'll try not to ask many more questions.
That's okay, Senator. If that happens again, we can work around with the chat.
Oh, thanks.
Senator McCray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I'm just educating myself because I'm not familiar with the situation. So what position, obviously this person is a teacher, but what are you doing to where you work contractually for one jurisdiction and work for another jurisdiction? I'm assuming maybe they're a consultant. I guess they're not teaching K through 12, but they're working in our public school system in some capacity.
I'm not sure about the specifics with this individual. But we have a lot of situations where we do have dual employment, Senator, with our members, active members right now. And we work with their agencies to make sure that we're not getting payroll reported for the same 8 hours. So that we're, because that would be a problem. But in this case, I believe the individual is contractual with Harford County, I think doing driver's ed, which is not, it's not full-time, it's part-time. And then I believe it is part-time. And then I believe also, Senator Jennings, do you know what he's doing with Baltimore City? Is that also part-time?
No, it's full-time. Unfortunately, I don't know exactly what it was he's doing, but I can find out, Senator McCray, and get back to you.
Yep. Now I'll tie in with you offline. That's the only thing. Obviously, it's my jurisdiction, Baltimore City, and I don't know the particulars. Obviously, I've been on pensions for this is my third session, but obviously we run into these one-off scenarios. But I am curious specifically. But I'll talk to you offline about the specific issue and just getting a better understanding of the specific employee.
Okay, and just so you know, we've done this before. We did it in 2019. We've passed similar legislation for another couple, I think it was 2 employees at that time.
Thank you. Any other questions for Senator Jennings or Ann? Senator Eckert, I know that you had a possible amendment.
Let me unmute. Thank you very much. As I do have an extenuating situation actually working on for Senator Bailey's constituent, where it's a very weird, again, situation where there was a couple and one was a state employee, checked the death and retirement benefit, but then the other spouse died, had done everything they needed to do, but couldn't produce that paper. And that's my understanding of this situation. So we've been working with Ms. Gothrop and her team to be able to identify a way to correct it. It's been a very sad and difficult situation. So did I get that right, Anne? So we're
pretty much this is an individual who she was a state employee. She went out on disability. Prior to going out, when she first applied for disability, she submitted paperwork to a preliminary application, which named her husband to receive the 100% joint and survivor benefit. When she was awarded the disability, she completed the final application for that disability. In that case, she named her husband, but selected the basic allowance, which means there would be no survivorship benefit when she died. We sent her a couple notices and said, hey, are you sure you want to do this? There's no benefit. And if you want to change it, you have until the end of April of 2018 to do it. We never got anything from her. Our office never received anything from her. So she died at the end of at the end of 2019. Her husband still thought he was getting the 100% joint survivor. Came in. We told him we have nothing, and there's nothing to pay. Everything on record tells us that it's the basic allowance. Over last year, at some point last year, we received in our office a completed application to change her option election, like we told her to do back in 2018. It was signed and notarized within the appropriate time frame. We just didn't have it in our office. And so now this is where Senator Eckert is coming in. Here is this paperwork. It was signed and notarized. We don't know if it got lost in the mail. We don't know what happened to it. But here it is. It's showing that she completed it in the appropriate time. And I believe that's where the amendment would come in, directing us to accept that document now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Any other questions for the sponsor of the bill or any other questions on Senate Bill 680? Seeing none, that concludes the hearing. Thank you, Senator Jennings. On Senate
Thank
Bill.
you.
Tend
to those horses. Okay, we'll move back to the order, which is Senate Bill 606. Kim, do we have Senator Hershey?
No, I'm on the phone call. I'm trying to find them. So
okay,
okay.
That's fine. Then we'll move on to, we have two joint committee bills. So we'll move on to Senate Bill 641. That is our bill as a chair of the joint committee. State Retirement Pension System Fiduciary Insurance. We have, let me just pull it up. Senate Bill 641. It is, we have Ms. Gothrop, we have Mr. Kenderdine from the agency as well. Philip, would you mind walking us through Senate Bill 641, please?
Yes, Senator. So this was a joint committee on pensions bill. Existing law requires bonding for fiduciaries of the system for losses to the certain types of losses to the system. That language is not something that the product to satisfy that language is not something that's available. And so the way it's been handled is there's been an insurance policy procured by the Treasurer's Office to satisfy the requirement. This legislation basically conforms the existing practice, the law to the existing practice where the insurance policy would satisfy that bonding requirement.
Thank you, Philip. Ms. Gothrop, Mr. Kenderdine, whoever would like to go first.
I have nothing to add. Philip did a great job explaining the bill.
I would agree, Madam Chair.
Okay. Do we have any questions on Senate Bill 641? We're conforming our law to the existing practice. Pretty simple. We did not have any questions during the interim during joint committee. This is pretty simple bill. Okay. Seeing no questions on Senate Bill 641, that concludes the hearing. We will move on to Senate Bill 642, another joint committee bill, State Retirement and Pension System COVID-19 related death benefits clarification. This is a bill that we worked on in the interim. It was kind of flagged for us by a number of state employees who had unfortunately lost their lives. So it was flagged for us on their behalf during this pandemic. A number of other states have taken action. This bill, it's a clarifying bill to say that when under certain conditions that state employees have passed from COVID-19 and they had contracted COVID-19 within 14 days of being at work in service, that they would benefit from this line of duty death benefits. There are some key components here that Philip refers to as tricky bits that I'm going to ask him to walk us through. But overall, this is, I think, the right thing for the state to do in honor of public service. Philip, if you wouldn't mind walking us through.
Sure. So as the senator said, I think what this bill is doing, it would be clarifying and setting up what would be kind of a uniform process for the system to handle issues where a system member has died from COVID and how to treat that in regards to eligibility for a line of duty death benefit. So the bill doesn't actually create any new benefit. There's already line of duty death benefits available for the affected systems. What the bill would do would specify basically the parameters under which when you have a COVID caused or contributed to death of the member, how that would be handled by the system. The idea was discussed in joint committee as a way of trying to provide a uniform process with some kind of clear parameters so that you don't have situations where depending on the member's individual circumstance and what kind of case they're able to make for the claim, some are successful and some aren't. This would create kind of a level playing field and provide some certainty with what the standards are. So if the meat of the bill starts on bottom of page 2, and so we've and later when we get to work session, we'll have some clarifying amendments. Just heads up. Generally, the bill would apply to any member who died on or after March 5th, 2020, but before July 1, 2022. So the bill has a 1-year sunset. That March 5th date was the declared state of emergency in Maryland. And as of now, we're not aware of any member deaths occurring before that. So that should be a sufficient retroactive period to cover the universe of people that the bill is contemplating. The death would have to be caused by COVID-19 or contributed to by COVID-19. So again, there the idea is to the extent you have COVID exacerbating an underlying condition, that wouldn't be a situation where it would disqualify the person. It's kind of all the ways that COVID can either directly or indirectly have that resulting death. So when determining the eligibility, on page 3 of the bill, subsection C, we have provisions saying that the board shall accept a death of a member as arising out of or in the course of the actual performance of duty. That's the operative language that you'll find in the statute for the line of duty death benefits. So if the member reported to the member's usual work location or to an alternative work location provided by the member's employee, but not the member's home. So this wouldn't be somebody who's just solely teleworking. It's people who are having to go to their workplace or to another work site directed by the employer. The member would have had to have contracted COVID-19 within 14 days after reporting to work. The death would have had to have happened between March 5th, 2020 and before July 2022. And COVID-19 is the cause of death or contributed to the cause of death. Subsection D establishes requirements and standards for providing documentation to the agency. So regarding when a member contracted COVID-19, positive lab test, diagnosis from a healthcare provider licensed in any state or District of Columbia who treated the member. And then we have a catch-all, any other medical records or documentation that the board deems adequate of proof as when the member contracted. That's meant as a, in case there's, something that wouldn't fit in those first two categories that is deemed reasonably acceptable to kind of establish that diagnosis. And then paragraph 2 would be regarding the documentation regarding COVID-19 being the cause of death or contributing to the cause of death. So you have a certified death certificate that states that sworn written statement under penalties of perjury from a healthcare provider who treated the member. And then again, any other medical records that the board deems adequate as proof for COVID being the cause or contributing cause to the death. As Senator Eckert mentioned, subsection E, this is what we kind of have started referring to as the tricky bits. So one thing that is going on here is we're talking about a date range that's back in the past, March 5th, 2020. So to the extent there may be some members, there have been members who have died. Now, normally, if a member is not receiving a line of duty death benefit, that's the common cause, and Ann and Dean can chip in. It's when you're talking line of duty, you're generally talking something that's kind of an acute event that happens, somebody, public safety officer gets killed in the line of duty. It's kind of clear what's going on there. So for this piece, you may have members who didn't seek a line of duty death benefit related to COVID, and so they may have received a non-line of duty death benefit, which all of the systems have. And there's two types of those. There's one which is a lump sum payment, which is a return of member contributions and a payment of 1 year's salary. That's for anyone who's been a member for at least a year. And then there's also some benefits, which when we get to discussion, we have some amendments to address this. There's also some benefits that are allowances based on a member having worked for a certain period of time. So in the employees and teachers system, if a member has reached a certain age and certain years of service, instead of that lump sum, the survivors are able to elect an allowance based on the member's service. And in the absent state police system, there's also a survivor benefit for just when a member dies, but it's not a line of duty. So this subsection E is dealing with a situation where you have this bill that's establishing some clear criteria for how to process line of duties related to COVID, but you may have a universe of people who based on the time of when they died from COVID, weren't eligible for these new clearer processes and standards. So what subsection E is doing, it's providing an opportunity for someone who received one of those non-line of duty deaths, in the event that they would, under this bill, qualify for the line of duty based on their circumstances, they can apply to the system to get that line of duty benefit. Now, where it gets a little tricky is the lump sum benefit goes to the beneficiary, whereas the survivor, the line of duty benefit, there's a progression for survivors. So it's surviving spouse, then kids, and then dependent parents. So they may not necessarily be the beneficiary. So you could have a situation where a lump sum was paid to a beneficiary who's not eligible for a line of duty. So within subsection E, there are some provisions that address how to handle that situation. And what it would do is it would, if a special death benefit is awarded in this retroactive process, but the lump sum has been paid, there would be an actuarial offset for the ongoing line of duty death benefit when it's awarded. So that's a way of ensuring that the system isn't paying multiple benefits, and a way of balancing, providing this retroactivity without incurring additional costs to payees who wouldn't be eligible for the line of duty. When we get to discussion, I have some amendments that the bill is silent on how to handle the non-line of duty death benefits. It's currently in its first reader version, it only has provisions related to the lump sum. Subsection F of the bill just clarifies that the board's allowed to create medical boards to assist in the processing of these. They have that existing authority, but this just clarifies that they can set up medical boards for purposes of processing these claims. Subsection G just clarifies, makes clear the treatment of these special death benefits awarded under this act would be in the nature of a workers' compensation act for purposes of taxation. That's already the standard for the statutory provisions, but in talking with the agency, tax counsel would felt more comfortable making it clear in this bill that, again, it's not anything new we're creating here. So to the extent anything is awarded under this act, it would be flowing through the existing statutes. And so the tax treatment would flow through like that. So the line of duty benefits are not subject to income tax in the same way that workers' comp benefits are. And then the remainder of the bill, we have some reporting requirements, just so you all have some information on the number of benefits that have been awarded under this act. We have some periodic reporting. So we have an initial report based on what's been awarded, up through the beginning of when the act takes effect, and then every 3 months after that with up to the Joint Committee. And Yep, the act, and again, the act provision clarifying that the act applies retroactively back to March 5th. And then you have a 1-year sunset. The joint committee's thinking on this was that, you put this in place for a year, and then over the interim and next session, you'd be able to address whether or not to extend it or make any revisions. And so that is the bill as introduced.
Thank you, Philip. And I appreciate that there are amendments, and if we were in person, we'd have them in front of us. Since we're remote, we don't. Before we move on to witnesses, I see Senator Corderman has a question. Senator Corderman?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, Philip. So, I mean, I see it's kind of defined as far as the time frame. How do we define, though, how an individual unfortunately, contracted COVID? Because there's a lot of talk here in regards to, not this bill particularly, but as far as, the session, as far as, for our small businesses and you're protecting them from liability and things like that. But as the state, we're going to come out and say we're going to award these benefits. We're not really determining how, unfortunately, this individual contracted it. I mean, if their place of employment had a large outbreak, I think it'd be safe to, to kind of connect the dots that happened. But if it's a situation where, we don't know. I mean, we don't know if they contracted it. They put themselves in a situation, unfortunately, where they were, a large gathering, or they weren't adhering to all the proper protocols, and they were out and about and doing all kinds of things that there's no way to say one way or another. I just find it's a little tricky when you talk about these things being tricky of how we actually determine this individual that was the state's not fault, but that because their employment is what gave them COVID. I guess is what I'm asking. How do we determine that?
So the bill is silent in terms of tracing back the source. One of the issues regarding that would be for a member to try and establish who they may have caught it with would involve them obtaining records they probably wouldn't have access to through HIPAA restrictions and things like that. So in terms of something that's able to be administrated simply by through the member and the system, you just have those criteria that you'd reported to work and that you had contracted the virus within 14 days of having reported.
But there's no way to say though that obviously that yes, you reported to work, but unfortunately you got COVID from being at work. We have no way to determine that. And look, I'm not advocating to get involved in HIPAA or anything like that, because obviously that's personal privacy matters. I think it's a bridge a little too far that we're just going to award these benefits, and it's kind of contradictory to other discussions we're having at the same time in regards to the private business sector. So no, I appreciate the clarification. That's all I was asking. Thank you.
Yeah, one thing to add, the Joint Committee did limit this to death benefits. There was some discussion and there may be some work needed on disability, which is a much different animal. So, I mean, we are talking about a defined event, and I believe the fiscal note came in as pretty much de minimis, given that it's expected to be a very limited number of circumstances, but those circumstances are fairly severe.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Corderman. This is trying to find a balance, which is why we put the 14-day window between physically being at work, and we appreciate that we do have a lot of state employees who are teleworking, and so we are trying to limit it to the folks that were physically at work at the time. It's one of those that might be almost impossible to prove how or where someone contracted it, which is why we tried to limit it. Philip, also, I want to thank Philip. He did a lot of research into other states. New Jersey had this 14-day. They were one of the first. Philip, is that correct? To put this in really almost immediately after the outbreak.
Yeah, I think New Jersey and New York are the ones that we're aware of. New Jersey used a 14-day. New York actually had a 45-day, and the Joint Committee, when they were evaluating that, like in the interim, decided to go with the 14-day, given that that's kind of the currently settled, time window in terms of the potential exposure window.
And the Joint Committee also sunset it, as Philip mentioned, in June 2022, because we would like to study this. We've had the strong reporting in there for the agency to get back to this subcommittee in December with all the cases that they were brought, so we can re-examine this next session as well. Senator McCray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And this may have been stated, but just for clarification, do we currently know if anybody falls under this provision at this moment?
I'm sorry, I didn't, you broke up a little bit.
I said, do we currently know if anyone falls under this provision at this moment? I know it's got a sunset. I know it's also retroactive, but it's been some time since we discussed it at the joint committee. So I was just saying, like, as of February 18th, do we know whether this provision anyone falls under?
I know back during the joint committee, there was information of, I think 3 members reported by the union. I think that number has increased. And I think, actually, I think there's Lance Kilpatrick signed up to testify, representing, he may have some information on updates on that.
Thank you. Senators, we do have a number of witnesses to sign up to testify. So any other questions for Philip on the technical side? Okay, seeing none. We have Lance Kilpatrick from AFSCME is here, as well as Ann Gothrop and Dean Kenderdine, and we have a number of written pieces of testimony from the FOP, from MSEA, and then my testimony as well. But Lance, welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Lance Kilpatrick. I am the Legislative and Political Director for AFSCME Council 3, representing 30,000 state and higher education employees in Maryland. 2 in the Division of Corrections, 5 in the Department of Health, 2 in the Department of Transportation, and 1 within the public university system. We have never dealt with a challenge like COVID-19 before. Frontline employees across Maryland have fearlessly continued reporting to work, even through shortages of PPE and information. Because of the work of frontline employees, we have limited community transmission out of our public congregate care facilities, but this has been done while having to surmount seemingly endless obstacles put before us. A lack of PPE, a lack of planning and safety protocols that have led to wildly divergent responses to outbreaks from facility to facility and campus to campus. The General Assembly has seen numerous health and safety bills introduced this session, but ultimately laws are only as effective as enforcement, and MOSH is in desperate need of being upgraded to a fully functioning and operational enforcement division. Finally, Maryland's chronic understaffing of its facilities has made a bad situation worse. Staffing levels at county health departments that never returned to pre-Great Recession levels has hindered the ability to fight the pandemic and deliver vaccines. Unemployment insurance claims are still significantly backlogged, and delivery of SNAP benefits have been hampered by understaffing. Meanwhile, there are real mental and physical health and safety concerns with so much overtime being mandated. We have facilities that are requiring our members to do consistent 16-hour shifts. All of this at a horrible cost of thousands of state employees contracting the virus, and to date, we are aware of 10 deaths. 2 in the Division of Corrections, 5 in the Department of Health, 2 in the Department of Transportation, and 1 within our public university system. We applaud the Joint Committee on Pensions for this legislative undertaking and encourage the committee to continue its vigilance. The long-term effects of COVID-19 are still being discovered, and it's highly likely that state disability benefits will need to be addressed before we can put this viral nightmare behind us. We thank you and strongly urge a favorable report of SB 642.
Thank you, Mr. Kilpatrick. Any questions for Mr. Kilpatrick? Seeing none, Ms. Gothrop, Mr. Kenderdine, welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have nothing to add as far as testimony. Again, we are not in support or not support. We're not taking position on the bill. We worked closely with Philip on the drafting of the bill. I want to thank Philip for working so closely with us to make this a bill that state retirement can administer without creating undue hardship on us trying to put all these benefits in place. To answer Senator McCrae's question earlier about how many people are affected, of the 10 that Lance sent names to me, we are trying to reach out to all the employee organizations to send their names to me as they know of people in their groups who are passing away from the virus. I've looked up a number of the people, and so far there are at the time Lance and I talked, I had 8 names. 2 of them qualified for family purposes. So not everyone, unfortunately, who passes away from this, and not every state employee who passes away from this will have family in place to benefit from this line of duty death benefit. So not everyone will have a spouse, not everyone will have children under age 26, not everyone will have dependent parents. So in some instances, no benefit will be able to be paid even though the person has died from the virus. And that's all I wanted to let you know.
Mr. Kenderdine, anything you'd like to add?
Madam Chair, Ms. Gothrop has once again more than effectively spoken for the system and the Board of Trustees, and I'll leave it at that. Very much.
Thank you. And Ms. Gothrop, thank you for adding that clarification as well to the subcommittee on who would qualify and not under this new suggested bill. Any questions for Ms. Gothrop or Mr. Kenderdine? Okay, thank you. Any questions on Senate Bill 642 that we have not yet addressed? Okay, seeing none, that concludes the hearing of Senate Bill 642. Mr. Kilpatrick, thank you. Next, we are going to go back up to Senate Bill 606, Senator Hershey, Correctional Officers Retirement System, Kent County. I believe when I read through this bill, I had a little bit of deja vu, Senator, because you brought us a similar bill last year, but it occurred to me that you represent multiple counties. So this is, okay, Senator Hershey.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. My apologies for not being on sooner when you called me, and thank you all for the multiple texts to make sure that I joined. Madam Chair, you're absolutely right. Last year, we brought in the same bill for Queen Anne's County. This bill is for Kent County, adding the Kent County Detention Center officers to become members of the Correctional Officers Retirement System, subject to Kent County beginning participation in the Correctional Officers Retirement System. It is supported by the Kent County delegation and, of course, the Kent County commissioners. The correctional officers of Kent County Detention Center are currently members of the Teachers and Employees Pension System with the state retirement agency. The same system non-public safety employees participate in. The Kent County commissioners would like the option for the correctional officers to enter the Correctional Officers Retirement System. The system offers enhanced benefits over the current employees pension system, including a lower number of service years for a full unreduced retirement benefits. Because of the enhanced benefits, it's beneficial for reoccurring qualified applicants and trained officers for the Kent County Detention Center. As you mentioned, last year, Queen Anne's County entered the Corps on July 1st, 2020. They joined because they compete directly and lose employees to other counties due to their pension benefits. Kent County competes directly with Queen Anne's County for the same applicant pool. Kent County is concerned that they will continue to lose trained correctional officers to other counties as those applicants or those employees are seeking better retirement changes. So I respectfully ask the subcommittee's approval of Senate Bill 606. Thanks.
Thank you, Senator Hershey. Any questions of Senator Hershey? Seeing none, we have Ms. Gothrop from the State Retirement Agency. We here to testify. We also have written testimony from Erica Howard of the Kent County Commissioners, Olivia Zachman from the Kent County Delegation, and of course, Senator Hershey. Ms. Gothrop.
I'm just here to answer any technical questions you may have.
Wonderful, thank you. Any questions of Ms. Gothrop or of Senate Bill 606? Seeing none, thank you very much, Senator Hershey.
Thank you all again. I appreciate it.
Okay, members of the subcommittee, we heard 4 bills today: Senate Bill 606, 641, 642, and 680. I wanted to, since we're only meeting every 2 weeks, and this session is a little complicated with the limited floor sessions and limited committee voting sessions, I wanted to make sure we had a discussion of the bills that we heard today. And if the subcommittee feels fit to move any of the less complicated bills or bills that we don't have any questions or concerns on, I would like to see that happen. So Senate Bill 606, we just heard from Senator Hershey. Any questions for Philip? Or, okay, is there a motion on Senate Bill 606?
Move favorable.
Thank you, Senator Eck. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Senator Griffith. All those in favor of recommending to the Budget and Tax Committee? Philip or Kim, what's the easiest way for you to do this over Zoom?
Well, I think since we're all on Zoom, we can see if there's, when you do a voice vote, if anyone is opposed to anything, they can speak up and we can note that.
Okay, so all those in favor of recommending Senate Bill 606?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. We will recommend a favorable report to the committee on Senate Bill 606. Senate Bill 641, this is the State Retirement and Pension System Fiduciary Insurance. Is there a motion on Senate Bill 641 or any questions of Philip?
Move favorable.
Second.
Thank you, Senator Swift. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we will have a unanimous vote as well to recommend a favorable report to the committee. Those, I think, are the two easier bills for us to move today. Any questions or discussion on Senate Bill 642? I got a sense from the subcommittee that we might want to take some time to think about that. It's a complex bill. We have some amendments that are more technical coming from Philip, and I want to give the subcommittee an opportunity to review those. Anything else or any discussion on Senate Bill 642? Okay, so we will take that up at our next subcommittee meeting, or.
And Madam Chair, I mean, I do have some draft amendments that I was able to pull together. If you want me to just do a quick screen share, I can.
I think we'd appreciate that. Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's see. Hopefully this is the right one. Okay, so 642. This is the death benefits bill. Just two minor changes and then one more substantive issue. So just
so can you zoom in just a little bit for?
Sure, sorry about that. Is that better?
Good. Good.
So in the bill as introduced, we had the defined term as death benefit, but throughout the bill, we refer to it as special death benefit. And so just for clarity and a little more precision, just tweaking the defined term to say special death benefit. So it's crystal clear about, when we're using that terminology, which statutory provisions are being referred to. The second less substantive provision is just on the reporting requirements. Sorry, I didn't highlight it. Just clarifying here for this first report that it is for awarded for deaths occurring. Just to be a little more precise about what that first report is supposed to provide for those deaths occurring before the bill takes effect. The other piece that's a little more substantive is, so when we were talking about the tricky bit about the people who have died before the bill becomes effective, who may have received a non-line of duty benefit, the bill is introduced was only specific to the lump sum benefit. There are also other benefits under these code provisions that provide a survivor allowance. And so when I was preparing for this and I was talking with the agency, it seemed like it would make sense to add something in here to clarify. So in this situation, somebody would already be receiving a benefit. So in those instances, if they're eligible for the special death benefit under this act, they can apply to the system for the allowance. All the same deadlines about making the application, August 31st, 2021, that still applies. The process for determining it still applies. And then there would just be a new provision clarifying that the non-line of duty allowance would be converted to the special death benefit allowance. And the one question here. I think I wasn't quite sure. It was just how you want that to apply, whether you want it to apply retroactive from the date of conversion or you want it to apply from the date of conversion, or do you want it to apply retroactively to kind of back when it would have started had the application been made? I think administratively, I don't know the agencies had time yet to determine which is more easier. I think philosophically, back to whenever it would have been payable after the death, I think is more in line with the rest of the bill. And then I think the agency would just like to double check with tax counsel to make sure that there's no issues with this.
Thank you, Philip. We do want to give the agency time to give us better direction on what would work best for them. Any questions of Philip on these amendments? Senator McCray.
Madam Chair, I got questions just on the bill, not on the amendments.
Yes, please go ahead.
I guess, Philip, my question is in reference to like the reporting out. I think that one of the things is as we're reporting out, just being able to see certain patterns. I know that it talked about, and it is great that it talked about all of those who filed applications, who were denied, who were awarded. So that's great. But getting also a better understanding of when they passed, at one point they passed will be a good observation. Also, the other one is like, what agency did they work in? It may be a certain agency that is percolating a little bit more than other agencies that we just have to identify. So I just think that those are two qualifiers that when we're looking at that information would be helpful just to see if there's any trends that populate it.
Thank you, Senator. I think those are two great additions and would help us make more solid policy moving in the future when we take this up again next session and kind of look back at the last, what will then have been almost 2 years of COVID.
I'm sorry, Senator. So I had which agencies? What was the first part?
Just in reference to like what time frame did the death happen, and if obviously we're going through
Right.
we're starting to move away from it. The vaccines is, but if we see that folks are still passing away, I think that sounds the alarm a little bit that this is an ongoing issue.
Right. Yeah, and that's why. So I think part of the reporting. So we have like this 3-month interval, and the idea behind that was, if we see that first report, if it's a lot, and then that next 3 months, it's probably going to be a really small data set. But to the extent there is a significant blip, that was the idea, that we'd be able to see something in there. And then as you noted, the provision about reasons why any have been denied. The idea there was so that next year, when you're taking another look at it, if there was something we haven't thought of that was causing a problem for administering this, you'll be able to address that.
Thank you, Senator. Any other questions or thoughts on this bill? Seeing none. So Philip, you'll work with the agency and their counsel on that one question. We will think about how to add Senator McCray's suggestion here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, lastly, we had Senate Bill 680, Senator Jennings. We are also, Senator Eckert had requested an amendment on that. So I would like to hold that bill until our next meeting on the 5th, so we have that amendment in hand and we can discuss it together.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Philip. Thank you, Dean and Ann. It's so good to see you. Senator McCray, is your hand still up from?
Madam Chair, I sent offline some questions just because I'm not as aware of this. So like if the questions, because I don't want to hold up any of my colleagues' bills, but just getting a better understanding of what I'm voting on would be helpful too. So I copied you on and I sent it to Ann and Philip.
Okay. Regarding Senate Bill 642 or another bill?
680.
680. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Senator McCray. Then we will work with you over the next week. All right, colleagues, our next meeting is I misspoke. It's March 4th. We are slated for 8:30. But if depending on our agenda. I see.
I don't, there's only, right now, there's only one more pension bill in the Senate that would not have been heard by that point. So yeah, I'll touch base with the chair and see what time we think will be a reasonable start time.
Probably a reasonable start time might be 9 a.m.
Got it. Thank
We'll take
you.
up that bill and we will continue the discussion of Senate Bill 642 and Senate Bill 680. Please, in the meantime, if there are any questions or concerns about any of these bills, please reach out to me and we will work with Philip to satisfy those questions. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion to adjourn. I apologize. Motion to adjourn.
You're welcome. I got it.
You
Thank
got Addie has my back. Thank you. All those in favor of adjourning? Aye. Okay. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Philip.